3 days. That is all it took. For 3 days, one man held more money than anyone else on the entire planet. More than Bill Gates. More than every tech billionaire you have ever heard of. And then, almost overnight, he lost 99% of it. We're talking about $59 billion. Gone. Vanished. The kind of number that is impossible to picture. Most people would have crawled into a corner and never come back. But this man? He laughed. He actually laughed. And then he got back to work. His name is Masayoshi Son, and his story is unlike anything you have ever heard. Because losing everything was not the end of his story. It was barely even the beginning. Picture a tiny wooden shack sitting on land that nobody was supposed to live on. The smell of pigs drifting through the air. A family squeezed into a space most people would not call a home. This is where Masayoshi Son was born in 1957 in Saga, Japan. His family had no legal right to even be on that land. They were Korean immigrants in a country that did not always welcome them. Money was so tight that his father brewed illegal alcohol just to keep the family alive. This was rock bottom. This was the starting line. And from this place, from this nothing, a boy began to dream dreams so enormous that the whole world would eventually have to pay attention. Every empire starts somewhere. This one started in a pig pen. The boy grew up fast. He had to. Every single day brought a new reminder that the world saw him as less than. Walking to school, other children threw stones at him, not because of anything he did, simply because of who he was, where he came from. His family used a Japanese surname to hide their Korean roots just to survive. But young Masayoshi was burning inside, not with shame, with fury, with hunger, with something that would later become the engine of one of the greatest business empires on Earth. Because here is the thing about being told you do not belong. Some people believe it, and some people decide to prove the whole world wrong on the most spectacular scale imaginable. Masayoshi Son chose the second path, and he never looked back. At 16 years old, most teenagers are thinking about friends, music, maybe what to eat for lunch. Masayoshi Son was thinking about changing history. He had just read a book by Den Fujita, the man who brought McDonald's to Japan, and something clicked inside him like a switch being flipped. He knew with absolute certainty that computers were going to change everything. Not someday, soon. So he did something almost nobody his age would dare to do. He dropped out of high school. He boarded a plane. Alone. No family, no map, no safety net. He flew to California with one single goal in mind: to learn, to prepare, to position himself at the exact center of the greatest technological revolution the world had ever seen. 16 years old, alone, and completely unafraid. America was overwhelming. The language, the culture, the pace of everything. But Son attacked it the way he attacked every challenge in his life, head on, with total obsession. He completed 3 years of high school work in 3 weeks, not months, weeks. He ate textbooks for breakfast He studied in the bath. He carried books to the dinner table. The people around him thought he was strange, maybe a little crazy. He did not care even slightly. He got into the University of California, Berkeley, one of the most respected universities in the world. And while other students were enjoying campus life, Son was already running calculations in his head. Not about grades, about opportunity, about where the next wave was coming from, and how to be standing on the beach before anyone else even felt the water rise. Here is where the story takes its first wild turn. Son did not just study at Berkeley. He invented something. As a student, with almost no money, he looked at the world around him and asked a simple question. What already exists that nobody has put together yet? He saw dictionaries. He saw computers. He saw voice technology. 3 separate things. And he combined them. He built an electronic translator with a voice, a machine that could speak words out loud. It sounds ordinary now. In the late 1970s, it was science fiction made real. He took this invention to Sharp Corporation, one of Japan's biggest electronics companies, and they bought it for $1.7 million. A college student, $1.7 million. That single moment was the blueprint for everything that came after. Back in Japan in 1981, armed with his invention money and a mind that never stopped moving, Son started a company. He called it SoftBank. The name was a statement of intent. A bank, not for money, but for information, for software, for the ideas that were about to remake the world. On his very first day, he stood on a fruit crate in an empty warehouse. He had hired exactly 2 part-time workers, and he gave them a speech. He told them that one day this company would be worth billions, that they were going to reshape an entire industry. His 2 employees thought he had lost his mind. One of them quit the next day. But Son kept going, because the vision in his head was so clear, so vivid, so real to him, that the opinions of others simply did not register. The idea was simple but powerful. Personal computers were beginning to appear, and computers without software are just expensive paperweights. Son decided to become the middleman between the companies making software and the shops selling it. He was not writing the software. He was not building the computers. He was building the bridge between them. The information highway before the internet existed, and it worked. SoftBank grew fast, then faster. Son added computer magazines to the business, creating publications that taught ordinary Japanese people about this strange new world of personal computing. He was not just selling products, he was building an audience. He was educating a country, and with every new reader, every new customer, he was quietly laying the foundation for something much, much larger. Then came the first real test. Just a few years into running SoftBank, Son was diagnosed with chronic hepatitis, a serious liver disease. Doctors told him he might have only 5 years to live. Most people in that situation slow down. They reassess. They spend more time with family. Son did the opposite. He became more urgent, not less. He said later that facing death made everything clearer. It stripped away all the noise, all the small thinking, all the hesitation. If you only have 5 years, you stop wasting time on things that do not matter. You go straight for the biggest, most important thing you can possibly do. And so he pushed harder. He survived, but that brush with mortality permanently changed how he moved through the world. Always forward, always at full speed. By the mid-1990s, a new wave was forming. Son could feel it. Most people could not see it yet, but he had been watching it build for years. The internet was coming, not just for scientists, not just for governments, for everyone. He made his move. In 1995, he invested in a small, barely known American startup called Yahoo. People told him it was reckless. They said nobody knew what the internet even was yet. Son did not argue. He just wrote the check. Then he went further. In 1996, he partnered with Yahoo to create Yahoo Japan. And Yahoo Japan did not just succeed, it dominated. It became the front door of the Japanese internet for an entire generation. Every person who ever searched for something online in Japan in the late 1990s started their journey through a door that Son had built. By the year 2000, Son was at the absolute peak of his power. SoftBank's stock had exploded. His personal fortune had grown to an almost incomprehensible level. He was, for a brief, shining moment, the richest person on earth, richer than anyone. And then the dot-com bubble burst. Technology stocks collapsed around the world like a row of dominoes. SoftBank's stock fell 98%. In terms of raw numbers, Son lost $59 billion. Not in a year, not in a month. In what felt like the blink of an eye. His employees were terrified. Journalists wrote obituaries for his career. The financial world whispered that it was over. But here is what almost nobody knows about what happened next. In the middle of all this chaos and ruin, Son had already made a small, quiet investment that would eventually make everything else irrelevant. The year was 2000. The world was in financial chaos, and a man named Jack Ma came to visit. Jack Ma was a former English teacher from China. He had an idea for an online marketplace, a way for small businesses in China to sell their products to the world. He did not have a finished business plan. He did not have revenue. He barely had a functioning website. And he was asking investors for money. Every single investor he talked to said no. Every one. Then he sat down with Masayoshi Son. The meeting lasted 20 minutes. Son did not ask to see a financial model. He did not study spreadsheets. He looked at Jack Ma. He looked into his eyes, and he saw something. Hunger. Fire. The same thing he had seen in his own mirror every morning since he was a teenager in a pig pen in Saga. Son invested $20 million in Alibaba. 20 minutes. $20 million. No contract reviewed line by line. No lengthy board discussions. Just a decision made from the gut and from vision. And what happened to that $20 million? It grew, and grew, and grew. By the time Alibaba went public in 2014, Son's stake was worth $75 billion. By 2018, it had grown to $132 billion. That is the single greatest return on investment in the entire history of venture capital. 7,000 times his original investment. Let that land for a second. If you put in $20 and got back $140,000, that is the same kind of return. $20 million became $132 billion because he trusted a pair of eyes in a 20-minute meeting. Now stop, because here is the moment where this story completely changes direction, and where you need to pay very close attention. Because what Son did next was not just bold. It was something that had never been attempted at this scale in the history of business. He looked at everything coming: artificial intelligence, robotics, autonomous vehicles, the complete rewiring of how human civilization works. And he decided that the old way of investing was too slow, too small, too timid. He did not want to invest in the future. He wanted to own it. He wanted to build a machine so large and so powerful that it could place enormous bets on dozens of companies simultaneously and reshape entire industries by the sheer force of capital. What he was planning would make everything he had done before look like a warm-up. In 2016, Son made a move that stunned the technology world. He spent $32 billion to buy a British company called Arm Holdings. Arm does not make smartphones. It does not make laptops. It designs the blueprint, the core architecture for the chips inside almost every single electronic device on Earth. Your phone almost certainly runs on an ARM design. Your tablet does too. Smart TVs, cars, medical equipment. Billions of devices, all built on the foundation that ARM created. Son understood something that almost no one else did at the time. The age of artificial intelligence was coming, and AI needs chips to think. Whoever controls the blueprint for those chips controls the nervous system of the future. $32 billion for the nervous system of the future. When you say it like that, it sounds like a bargain. 1 year later, in 2017, Son did something even more extraordinary. He launched the SoftBank Vision Fund. $100 billion. The largest technology investment fund in the history of the world. Not 50 billion, not 80 billion, 100 billion. To put that in perspective, all the venture capital investment in the entire United States in a typical year is roughly $50 billion. Son raised twice that into a single fund. He got money from Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, from Abu Dhabi, from Apple and other major corporations. And then he went shopping. He poured money into Uber, Grab, WeWork, Slack, DoorDash, and dozens more. He was not just picking winners. He was trying to flood entire industries with so much capital that his companies could not lose. That was the theory. Reality, as always, had other plans. Here is the hard part, the part that the headlines loved. The Vision Fund did not only produce winners. WeWork was supposed to be a technology company that rented office space. Son believed so deeply in its founder, Adam Neumann, that he poured in billions of dollars. But when WeWork tried to go public, investors looked at the numbers and recoiled. The company was burning cash at a terrifying rate. The valuation Son had assigned it turned out to be fantasy. WeWork collapsed. SoftBank lost billions. And Son stood in front of cameras and called his own judgment embarrassing. That word, embarrassing. From a man who had stared down death, lost $59 billion once before, and kept going. It showed something important. Even the greatest vision in the world can be wrong. The question is never whether you will fail. It is what you do the morning after. But let us go back to the moment that might be the most audacious single decision in the history of business. The year is 2005. The iPhone does not exist yet. Nobody outside Apple's most secret inner circle even knows it is being built. Son travels to California to meet Steve Jobs. He brings with him a hand-drawn sketch, a rough drawing of an iPod with phone capabilities, a device that does not exist. He shows it to Steve Jobs, and Jobs looks at it and says, with characteristic bluntness, "Masa, do not show me your shitty drawing. I have my own." Son does not flinch. He does not apologize. He leans forward and says, "Fine. Then when yours is finished, give me the rights to sell it in Japan." And Jobs, looking at this man's absolute nerve and certainty, smiles and shakes his hand. A handshake. No contract, just a handshake. To make that handshake mean something, Son needed to own a mobile network in Japan. SoftBank did not have one. So he bought one. In 2006, he acquired Vodafone's Japanese operation for $17 billion. $17 billion of debt. The financial community called it reckless, suicidal, the kind of move that ends careers. Vodafone Japan was struggling. Its network was weak. Its customer numbers were falling. Nobody in their right mind, the analysts said, would pay this much for a sinking ship. But Son was not buying a sinking ship. He was buying a launch pad. He was buying the infrastructure to deliver the most important consumer device in history to the most technology-hungry market in Asia. He was not looking at what Vodafone was. He was looking at what it was about to become, the moment a certain phone arrived. July 11, 2008. iPhone 3G launch day in Japan. The lines outside SoftBank stores stretched for blocks. People camped overnight in the summer heat. And something happened that had never happened in the Japanese mobile market before. Customers started switching carriers. Not in small numbers, in massive waves. The word for switching your phone number to a different network is MNP in Japan, and SoftBank's MNP numbers went through the roof. Docomo and au, the giants who had dominated the market for years, watched in disbelief as their customers walked out the door. All because one man had made a drawing 2 years earlier and flown to California to show it to Steve Jobs. All because of a handshake. All because Son had seen where the wave was going and had simply been standing there, ready, waiting for it to arrive. The iPhone deal changed everything for SoftBank. Revenue exploded. The weak, struggling network Son had bought for $17 billion was now carrying data for millions of customers who were streaming, browsing, downloading, living on their phones. And the cash that flowed in gave Son something precious: firepower. The ability to make his next moves without asking anyone for permission. He kept buying companies. He kept investing. He purchased Sprint in America. He expanded across Asia. He built a portfolio of tech businesses that spanned the globe, each one connected to his central idea, that information, the flow of data, the exchange of knowledge between people, was the most valuable commodity on Earth. And whoever controlled the pipes, the platforms, and the devices that carried that information would control the future itself. Son often talks about something he calls his 300-year vision. Most businesses plan 5 years ahead. Some plan 10. Son thinks in centuries. He has said publicly that his goal is to build something that will still be relevant and still be changing human life 300 years from now. That might sound like ego, like someone who has simply grown too big to be modest. But think about it differently. When you have a 300-year time horizon, short-term losses stop being catastrophic. A $59 billion wipeout is just a data point. A failed investment is just a lesson. The critics who wrote him off after the dot-com crash, after WeWork, after every stumble, are thinking in quarters. Son is thinking in centuries. That mismatch in time horizon is perhaps the single biggest reason he keeps coming back when everyone else assumes he is finished. After the 2011 earthquake and tsunami devastated Japan, Son did something unexpected. He announced that SoftBank would invest in renewable energy, solar farms, wind power. He pledged $100 million of his own personal savings to disaster relief. And he lobbied the Japanese government to deregulate the energy market so that private companies could build the clean energy infrastructure Japan desperately needed. People asked why a technology investor was suddenly talking about solar panels. Son's answer was simple. The next revolution needs power. Artificial intelligence runs on electricity. Data centers consume enormous amounts of energy. If you want to own the future of computing, you need to own the fuel. It was not charity. It was not distraction. It was the same pattern playing out again. See the next bottleneck before anyone else does, and quietly move to control it. Now let us talk about what Son is building today. Because what he is doing right now makes everything we have discussed so far look like the opening chapters of a much larger story. Son has been talking openly about something called ASI, Artificial Superintelligence. Not just AI that can help you write an email or suggest a movie, but intelligence that surpasses human thinking by a factor of 10,000. A mind that can solve problems that have defeated humanity for centuries. Disease, climate, poverty, the mathematics of existence itself. Son believes this is not science fiction. He believes it is coming within years, not decades. And he has positioned every major asset he controls, ARM, the Vision Fund, his partnerships, his relationships, to be at the center of that moment when it arrives. The Stargate project is perhaps the clearest signal of where Son is placing his bets right now. Together with OpenAI, Oracle, and investment partners from the Middle East, Son is working to build a network of data centers and power infrastructure across the United States. The kind of physical infrastructure that artificial intelligence needs to actually run at the scale he is imagining. This is not a software play. This is not an app. This is concrete and steel and electricity and cooling systems built at a scale that most people cannot even picture. It is, in Son's own framework, exactly what Vodafone Japan was to the iPhone. It is the infrastructure layer, the pipes, the foundation. And if his theory about ASI is correct, whoever owns this infrastructure will be in a position of extraordinary power in the decade ahead. ARM Holdings went public again in 2023, and the market's reaction told a very clear story. Investors did not price ARM as a boring semiconductor company. They priced it as the foundation of the AI age. The company's value soared in ways that shocked even bullish analysts. And Son, who had held on to ARM through years of pressure to sell, through a failed acquisition attempt by NVIDIA, through all the criticism about the Vision Fund and his judgment, suddenly looked like the most patient and most correct investor in the world. The thesis that had seemed so abstract in 2016, that whoever designs the chips for AI controls everything, was no longer abstract. It was happening in real time, right in front of the entire investment world. The man who lost $59 billion had been right about the most important technology bet of the century. Think about the thread that runs through this entire life. A boy in a pig pen in Saga who gets stones thrown at him on the way to school. A teenager who crosses an ocean alone at 16. A college student who sells an invention for more than $1 million. A founder who builds an empire, loses almost everything, and comes back stronger. Every single time the world said stop, he accelerated. Every time the conventional wisdom said impossible, he found a way. And right now, in his 60s, Masayoshi Son is not slowing down. He is making the largest bets of his life. He is moving faster than at any point before, because he believes, with everything he has, that the biggest wave in human history is just now beginning to form. And he intends to be standing exactly where it breaks. Here is the question this story forces you to ask. What is the thing that you see right now that nobody else around you seems to be taking seriously? What is the wave that is still below the horizon that you can feel in the water beneath your feet, but that most people have not noticed yet? Son's lesson is not that you need billions of dollars to matter. His lesson is about timing, about the willingness to commit before the evidence is undeniable. By the time something is obvious, the opportunity is already gone. The people who got rich from the internet were not the ones who joined in 2001 after the newspapers confirmed it was real. They were the ones who believed in 1994 when it looked crazy. The ones who act before it is safe are the ones who change things. Son has always been one of those people. SoftBank's market value surpassed Toyota's in 2025. Let that sink in. Toyota, one of the most recognizable manufacturing companies on Earth. A company that makes millions of physical vehicles every single year and has done so for generations. Overtaken by a company built on vision, on bets, on handshakes and hand-drawn sketches, and 20-minute meetings where a man looked at another man's eyes and saw fire. The market was not voting on what SoftBank had already built. It was voting on what it believes SoftBank is going to build next. It was saying, loud and clear, that the age of information and artificial intelligence now outweighs the age of physical manufacturing in terms of where the future of human value lies. That shift is not going to slow down. It is going to accelerate. $59 billion lost, laughed off, got back up. A hand-drawn sketch on a napkin that unlocked a mobile revolution. $20 million that became $132 billion. A $32 billion bet on the blueprint of every AI chip on Earth. And right now, at this exact moment, Son is engineering what he believes will be the most important infrastructure project in the history of human intelligence. He is not retiring. He is not coasting. He is running faster than ever because he believes the finish line he has been running toward his entire life is finally, actually, within sight. The age of artificial superintelligence. The moment machines think 10,000 times faster than any human mind. He has been preparing for this his entire life. And the wildest part? He might be right.